Recently, I've been seeing a lot of adverts. I haven't seen it in the cinema yet, but it's on my list. We're gonna go and see it soon. But The Substance, I don't know if you've seen it yet, but I was hoping we could talk about Demi Moore. I know you've shot her, I think, a few times, or is it just the once?
I've shot Demi Moore just the one time, and it was quite a memorable experience. It was at the weekend, and it was kind of totemic because it kind of signaled that I was in the big league because she at the time was, I think, probably the most well-paid actress in the world, and really quite a formidable presence. And I remember I had a meeting before. I mean, we can flash up the diary. Back then I had a much busier schedule than I do now, and I had to go in and have a meeting about the shoot beforehand. And it was to take place in a location that I've never been to since or before. It was a sort of Mayfair club, and it was very, very kind of exclusive and intimidating. And as I said, we actually had to shoot it at the weekend, which is kind of unheard of.
So you're at this club. It was on a weekend. Who were you shooting for?
It was for the Observer, and it was at a time that I was just getting, A-lister after A-lister. And in fact, having started watching The Substance, which is extraordinary looking. I mean, it reminded me a bit, it was quite Kubrickian in terms of the framing. Each scene was like a photograph. I mean, I wanted you to see it. I stopped watching because I thought we could watch it together, and then I haven't actually finished watching it. But I can't wait to get back to it because it's got this visual, graphic intensity to it, which is actually really sort of in keeping with the kind of weird and scoriating criticism that the female director has of the beauty industry and the impossibly high standards that men as well as women now have to kind of maintain. You get over 50 and it's about this woman who takes this substance in order to stay young, sort of a bit like the Dorian Gray, who had a picture in the attic that aged on his behalf. He didn't age, Oscar Wilde's famous book. I mean, I can't wait to watch the rest of it, although your sister Polly...
That's what I was about to say. I'm a bit scared from Polly's synopsis. Retching in the cinema.
Polly said people were vomiting, or certainly dry retching. Yeah. And in fact, as I was about to say, in the film, her agent is played by Dennis Quaid, who I also happened to photograph in this little purple patch of amazing kind of A-listers that I was doing at the time. And I quickly went upstairs and got these contacts. We can sort of go into detail about this shoot as well.
Sounds good. So we'll begin with Demi Moore. You're in this Mayfair club. I can imagine that's quite a difficult place to shoot.
Yeah.
With lighting. I know you like your natural light. Or was this a time where you still used your ring light or any other lighting?
One of the films I shot on my Fuji 6.9, and I managed to use a bit of daylight. I got her out onto a sort of ledge, and the background is the slate of the roof. So we must have been on the top floor. And I also used my ring flash, which I was very much into at the time, and my redhead. So the pictures inside, looking at them now, what's interesting is that it was okay to smoke them, and it actually smoke in photographs. I remember her agent was slightly concerned that some of the pictures she was smoking, but she was the kind of person who liked a cigarette, and it was much more ubiquitous back then.
So did you mention what year it was?
1997.
Okay, so still quite early. So were you smoking with her at the time? So she had a
cigarette.
I can imagine you with the camera, cigarette in mouth.
I might have had a cheeky cigarette in order to kind of like bond and kind of connect. It's a useful kind of way of establishing a rapport. I mean, it's not something I would advise anyone to do. It's about the dumbest thing you can do, smoke cigarettes. But
But at the time you smoked. But I know at the time you weren't ever a big drinker or anything like that. I can imagine you partaking in some things to help you get a picture, help
Yeah.
get better rapport?
I
Is that quite frequent?
I would say I've been a kind of semi-demi committed smoker. I mean, I basically if it's sort of integral to me helping me get some good pictures, then I'm a smoker. I mean, it's a bit like,
Or a drinker? Or
yeah. I mean, I remember photographing Bernard Manning, who is a kind of racist, old school comedian. I mean, I think he was quite a
you're being
talented.
racist with him to
Yeah,
build rapport?
I wasn't exactly being racist, but I went to the Embassy Club up in Manchester where he was based, and you know, I might have had a cigarette with him, but I chose to reveal what he would like to see. So I didn't tell him that my dad was Jewish. I sort of told him that my dad was a farmer, and that was sort of more palatable. Yeah, so I kind of with Demi, I didn't really have anything in common with her apart from the fact that she was smoking Marlboro Lights, and so I might have pinched one, but I would actually, I would actually sort of head you off in your assertion that I was a smoker, because I've always been a sort of a lightweight in that regard. I mean, I've been through various phases of thinking, as Woody Allen said, that I look very handsome with a cigarette in my hand, but it's, you know, it's something that I kind of have long since acknowledged is a really dumb thing to do. So I don't tend to smoke unless, as I said, there are occasions. With Steve Coogan, I was smoking, you know, on that shoot, but then I sort of go home, wash my hands, brush my teeth, and pretend it didn't happen.
All right, so back to Demi Moore and photography. So you arrived, you managed to get some daylight.
Yeah, interestingly, the pictures that I shot on this one roll, none of which I printed up at the time, none of which were in the Observer, they weren't lit with flash or tungsten. They were just the daylight pictures. And looking at them now, they actually are the best pictures because they look timeless. Whereas the pictures of the ring flash are quite impressive. I mean, she's kind of quite powerful, and she's wearing this red top, and the colours really pop. And it works really well against the monochrome of the slate that I've put her against. But the pictures look a bit dated, maybe. I still like them. And then the pictures that I took with the tungsten, I'm messing around in the dressing room, and there's a mirror there. I remember when I first met her, she said to me, she was promoting G.I. Jane, for which she had a full buzz cut because she was playing a female soldier. And I arrived and I had my hair really short, and she said, I recognize that hairstyle. And at the time she was married to Bruce Willis, and I assumed that she was referring to my looking like Bruce Willis, which was kind of, I should be so lucky. But I think with the benefit of hindsight, I think she was actually referring to the fact that she'd just done G.I. Jane. But yeah, I mean, it's funny the things that you remember. It's almost 30 odd years ago. So
Yeah, definitely. So you're talking about lighting, and your favourite ones being the pictures with natural light, which is so often the case whenever we talk about your previous shoots. And you always refer to natural light being timeless. Whether it's 20 years ago, it's the same sun as today, kind of thing.
exactly, exactly, because ring flash was very popular back then. But and it sort of kind of comes and goes, waxes and wanes. And I guess with people doing selfies and actually recording stuff for social media, you can buy sort of LED ring lights, which aren't the same as the flash, but maybe it's sort of slightly come back in again now. But
It softens the skin, doesn't it? It's very flattering.
it's very flattering, and it also is an instant weirdness that you can kind of apply.
Yeah, you can see the ring in their eyes. Like for instance, in the photography video where you're giving tips, crucial tips for photographers. You always mention to kind of see the light or frame the light within the eye or something along those lines. So
Yeah, I mean,
ring light's quite helpful in doing that, I can imagine.
Well, I think what I said was that you can always tell how a photograph is lit by looking in the eyes of the subject, because you can see the light source reflected back. You can often see yourself reflected back, and that's something that I quite often do. I think when I was doing Jarvis Cocker, I was looking at this. I was scanning the pictures for the Jarvis video we did, and then I looked into his eyes or into his spectacles, and I saw myself, and I contemplated the fact that was me from like 30 years ago, you know, before you were born, when I was in my 30s.
So that is something you like. You want that.
It's just very strange to see pictures of yourself, which are sort of hidden in the photograph, that aren't obvious, that are kind of you in action, sort of hunched over a Hasselblad taking a pictures. They're so small, they're tiny, and with a high resolution scanner, suddenly you can sort of see them, and it's surprising how much information is there. But yeah, I mean, the ring flash is instant weirdness. It was an obvious thing to use because she wasn't going to give me very much time, and you have to kind of, it's a high impact option when you haven't got the opportunity to build up a rapport and cultivate an intimate connection with somebody. There's an honesty to it because it's like a photo me booth. You're basically plonking them in front of the camera and it's boof. And it doesn't really, the pictures don't really tell you anything other than that they were shot with a ring flash. Whereas the pictures with the daylight that I took, I scanned one of them, we'll put it up, and it's a nice, it's more than nice, it's got more poignancy. I mean, it's very poignant. The pictures are very poignant when you look at the substance, because she's now a woman in her 60s. And I guess back in 97, she was at the height of her powers, in terms of the way she looked. Rightly or wrongly, well, probably wrongly, people are just written off. And looks are the sort of main kind of metric by which people are judged. And that's what the film kind of deals with. That's why it's an interesting film, because it's women in particular that have this kind of harsh sort of ratings and kind of are evaluated according to their looks in a way that men, traditionally haven't been to the same extent.
Yeah, it's on my list now. I'll go and watch it tomorrow. All right, cool. So we've gone into the photography a little bit. I'd just like, was she kind? Was she nice to you?
Well, this is another thing. The journalist was Marianne MacDonald, not Lynn Barber or William Leith, but Marianne is no longer a writer. I think she left journalism, and I think she might work in the city or something like that. But she was quite an intimidating presence. She was about the same age as me, but I always felt like she was sort of older and more senior to me. And there had been a few pieces that we did together where she's really kind of laid into the subject and been quite bitchy. And then I've sort of borne the consequences. So I got on very well with Demi. I felt it had gone well. For me, it was an amazing opportunity to photograph an A-lister and somebody that I immediately put into my portfolio because she was so huge. She'd done this film, with Patrick Swayze called Ghost. I'm sure most people, anyone who hasn't seen it should go and see it because it still stands up pretty well. And it had been the biggest grossing film of that year. And from then on, she was in a world of her own. And then she kind of married Bruce Willis, who'd done the Die Hard franchise. So they were kind of like a power couple. And what happens is, a bit like Posh and Becks, celebrities, if they sort of get together, they become more than the sum of their parts. It's a bit sort of like, Rolls-Royce and Bentley getting together and creating this kind of supercar that,
Super luxury car.
Yeah, absolutely. And she was just on a kind of another sphere. So I don't think she would remember me. She definitely wouldn't remember me. For me, it was very much me going into her orbit and briefly being subject to her gravitational pull, this incredible star, this quality, really on a completely different level to some of the people that I'd been photographing around that time. But like I said, it was similarly, it was a big deal photographing Dennis Quaid, and all the shoots that I did like that, Jeff Goldblum, Minnie Driver, basically they all had they were mostly similar in the sense that I didn't get very much time. So you had to kind of be able to do work very, very quickly, come in, bowl them over with the force of your personality, and so you didn't get kind of complete short shrift. Get them to give you enough attention, 10, 20 minutes, and then you get out, and then you hopefully end up with something simple and strong that the observer used. I mean, when I did shoots for Vogue or Harper's Bazaar, that kind of carried with it a certain degree of assumption that the PRs and the stars would make about you as a photographer. So you tend to get more time. No disrespect for the observer. I mean, it was great that they managed to get any time with Demi Moore or whatever, or Martin Scorsese or whatever. But it was always going to be, it was always, you know, you've got 5 minutes, you've got 10 minutes. But the thing is that if you have a ring flash and you know what you're doing and you're organized and you get there early and so that when they come in, you're ready to go and you kind of seem like you've got a lot of energy and you get something quickly, 10 minutes sometimes can be ample. It was just a really halcyon period where all these amazing people were just falling in my lap. I mean, I think it was a combination of Justine Piketty, who was the editor, and I think there was somebody called Stephanie, who was the features editor. And for some reason, she was on fire and she was able to get these amazing interviews, in spite of the fact that in the case of Marianne MacDonald, they would sometimes be stitched up. And I know that with the Demi Moore, she liked the pictures, but she was really pissed off with what the journalist wrote.
Did you shoot her before the journalists had her?
Yeah, I mean, I did.
Okay. That probably saved the shoot.
Yeah, I mean, she only knew that the journalist had stitched her up after it had been published, because the journalists are often, you know, most of the time they're nothing but charm and you know, they want to ensure that they get the interview. How they interpret the interview is their editorial choice. And I think Marianne MacDonald realized that it was better for her career to be kind of quite snidey, if I'm honest. And Lynn Barber did exactly the same thing, but Lynn did it in such a way as, I mean, she kind of found it hard to get people to interview in the future, Lynn did, because she was so tough on people, but she sort of got away with it a little more, I think, than Marianne MacDonald.
All right, well, I think we've got enough there. Anything else you'd like to add, Dad?
No, I think the bit about, I think that's the nice thing about Demi, is that she's, you know, Marianne MacDonald, who wrote the kind of mean, catty article about her, is no longer a journalist or a writer. She's moved on and she's doing something else now. Whereas Demi Moore, still actor, and that's impressive. And she did allow me to get some genuinely powerful and impactful photographs, which I think, you know, I still really like. I love it. It's what I do. I mean, I'm sure for her, it's about, you know, creating, and it's just creating.
Yeah, she must love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you feel it when after a shoot, or I'm sure if you're an actor, and I like photographing actors. I mean, any creative people, I like photographing people, but quite often after I've done a shoot, I feel invigorated. I feel more alive. I feel I've sort of met someone new and I've connected, you know. That's the great thing about photography.
Yeah, great way to end it. Thanks, Dad. Thanks for watching, guys. Much appreciated.